So I ended up getting a few books. Welcome back to another video. We are just about to get ready because I've decided to go on an adventure today. So since we moved to Calgary, I've been dying to check out some more spots for books, bookstores, the library, because if you guys don't know, I've basically rekindled my love for reading in the past year. So basically, I would say like last August was when I first started to pick up reading again. One of the videos that I've been loving are bookstore vlogs and just general reading, bookish type of vlogs in general. So I decided I might as well do one myself. The thing with books, I feel like, is sometimes you don't even have to buy a book, and just being in the vicinity of books is enough to make me feel like, I don't know, I'm just getting secondhand bookish vibes, if that makes sense. I've also started to read physical books, which was not a thing last year. I'm starting to feel like it is nice. It is a different feeling to have a physical book in your hands. So I'm starting to gradually grow that collection, and I'm hoping eventually I'll get a bookcase. But for now, we're just looking, we're just browsing, and I have a few places in mind. That bookstore was everything. We are now gonna go to the library and try to find some more books for free. It is now several days later. I'm refilming this. Sometimes it just be like that. I did take you guys along, and I wanted to recap what I ended up getting, and this is gonna be just a little fun book haul. I also realized I completely forgot to say the fact that I'm not a booktuber. I love book content, and basically, like I said at the beginning, I started reading again after not reading fiction for years of my life. Basically, I heard people recommending some books here and there. I had no idea that booktube and book talk were like massive communities. I just think it's so cool that this is something that can be so universal, and I love shopping for books and stuff, so I wanted to take you guys along. I wanted to explore what types of bookstores there are in Calgary, and I know there's still others, so if you do have recommendations, and I know some of you guys are in Calgary, please let me know because I'm looking to try to go to more places. Also, the library was insane. Like, I think it's so gorgeous in there. So we're gonna dive into the books that I picked out. So first off, at Slow Burn Books, they do have romance, which is like the main thing of the whole store. I would say it's very much book talk coded. If you think reading girly, like reading aesthetic, it has all the things, the bookmarks, the accessories. It's so cute in there. There's sports romance, fantasy, contemporary romance. I went the fantasy route. I ended up picking up Powerless, and it is by Lauren Roberts. I have heard of this book since like last year when I was first getting into reading. And if you guys don't know, I don't think I talked too much about what type of books that I like, but fantasy was kind of the genre that made me find my way back to reading. You know, growing up, I wasn't a huge fantasy reader. I definitely read Twilight. I'm not gonna pretend like that part of me didn't exist. But, you know, it just surprised me how much I enjoyed fantasy as an adult. And this isn't an adult fantasy. This is actually young adults. Since picking this up, it's so funny because like before I bought this, I have only just heard loosely that, you know, there's romance involved and there's like some sort of love triangle. But only recently, like in the last few days, have I heard people comparing this to The Hunger Games. I did read The Hunger Games and I loved it. So if that's kind of, you know, the vibe that we're gonna be in, then I feel like I'll enjoy this as well. But there's already other books in this series, so I'm excited that if I do enjoy this, there'll be other follow-ups that I can dive into afterwards. After I finished at Slow Burn, I did make my way over to the library. I picked up more books than I expected I would because I've never been to this library before. I just got back into going to the library last year when I was in Toronto, and I've heard only good things about this library, which is Central Library in Calgary. It's basically the biggest library in Calgary. It's very beautiful inside, I must say, and I was very impressed by the selection of books that they had. The very first one that I picked out, and I'm actually almost done reading it already, it is called Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. This is a YA romance, so it is a lot cuter and fluffier than some of the other books that I will be sharing. I've heard of this author before. She also wrote Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and that's another YA romance that has been quite popular. The name of the female main character just so happens to be Celine as well. And it's also spelled the same as my name, which I feel like is very rare, except for Celine Dion. So I was like, I have to read this. The writing is so fun in this. So this follows Bradley and Celine. They're both seniors in high school. Think of, you know, the football player, and then the opposite of that, Celine is a little bit into the conspiracy theories and, you know, a little bit different. And they used to be friends. They're not friends anymore. Things kind of unfold to bring them together. I think the writing is so fun in this. I've been cackling and like giggling. Just bear in mind that this is tailored towards a younger audience. Maybe I've just been in the mood for something that's lighthearted, but even as a 27-year-old, I have really enjoyed this. Next book I got is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I've heard this is kind of a cozy fantasy, but after I picked it up, I have since heard that there are some darker events that unfold. So Emily Wilde essentially is a professor at Cambridge. She is an expert on fairies, a genius scholar, and meticulous researcher. She's writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. I'm not too sure what to expect from this, but I am excited to try something a little bit different in the fantasy genre. Next is also fantasy. This one is in such good condition. So this is called Five Broken Blades. The king of Yusan must die. The five most dangerous liars in the land have been mysteriously summoned to work together for a single objective: to kill the god King June. There's mentions of murder, of treachery. I haven't read anything this dark in a while, or it gives me the feeling that it might be a little bit dark, a little bit serious. There's clearly a lot at stake, unlike the other two books that I just described, but I'm excited and I think this will be a good one to get into. I didn't end up getting anything at Pages. I think that might be my favorite bookstore so far that I've seen, but again, haven't been to that many just yet, but it has such a cozy vibe. There's even a cat at the bookstore, so it's like the quintessential indie bookstore. I am gonna try to cool it with my book purchasing because I found a site a while ago and I decided to make an order. So buckle up because we're just getting started. So I ended up getting a few books and we're gonna go through them. I will probably not go super in depth because that will take forever. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I have 9 books that I ordered from Book Outlet. So from what I understand, the books are a combination of new and used books or refurbished books, but they're all discounted. When I first saw this, I was like, there's no way this can be real. and I had to test it out for myself. So let's talk about the books that I got. I'll start with the book that I have read. This is the most recent book that I finished. This is a YA fantasy, so young adult. There's not like explicit scenes of any sort. It is an enemies to lovers trope. I will say another thing is I am the type of person that doesn't read what a book is about before I dive into it. I feel like it's so fun to just go into it blind. So I am definitely someone that judges a book by its cover, and I go off of like usually just like a very, very high level synopsis of what the book is. So I had very limited knowledge about this. There are aspects of a war involved in this world. The cover talks about no god, no creature, no war can come between them. So I kind of thought this might be very serious. There's a lot of stake type of thing. I didn't really get that vibe. It's not to say there's not a war and, you know, those things are still happening, but I think it just focuses more on the romance. It's very easy to get through. It is a duology, so there's a second book that's already out. I just haven't had the motivation to go and read it, so do with that what you will, because usually if I'm like absolutely hooked on characters and like I need to know what's going to happen, then I would have already read it. But I would say this was like a 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. I've also been heavy into the romances. I didn't even realize how many different styles of romance books there are, but I'm trying to expand my repertoire when it comes to authors. So there's a diverse range, I feel like. This is not very diverse. I feel like everyone has heard about this book. It is Archer's Voice, and despite hearing about this so much, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what this plot is about. From what I'm gathering, this is a little bit of a small town romance. I have heard that this is sad, so I don't know if I'm ready to be in a sad mood just yet, but most people that have talked about it have said that it's very good despite the sad parts, I think. Another romance that I've heard is a little bit sad is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I've heard amazing things about Tia Williams, and this is the first book that I'll be reading from her. Eva Mercy is a single mom and best-selling erotica writer who is feeling pressed from all sides. Shane Hall is a reclusive award-winning novelist who, to everyone's surprise, shows up in New York. When Shane and Eva meet unexpectedly at a Black literary event, sparks fly, but what no one knows is that 15 years earlier, teenage Eva and Shane spent one crazy, torrid week madly in love and have been secretly writing Oh my god! Have been secretly writing to each other in their books ever since. Oh my gosh. Wow, that made me feel something. Okay, I'm excited to read this. I think this is moving up in my list. Another romance, not in that same tone, but this is from Sophie Cousins. I saw this book at the airport one day and the cover had caught my eye, as covers usually do. The first sentence also had me because it basically says, Lucy Young is 26 and tired. And that resonated with me so deeply that I decided I'm gonna read this. But I've never read Sophie Cousins either, and she has written This Time Next Year, which is also pretty popular. This is a rom-com. It sounds like she's in her mid-20s navigating life and also trying to simultaneously skip to the good part, which I can deeply resonate with. I'm excited to learn more about this. I feel like for books like this, I just like to dive into it and then see what happens. Another romance, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have not read Kennedy Ryan either. I did see several of her books available at the library, which is amazing because if I end up absolutely loving her writing, then I can go back and try some of the other books that they have at the library too. But this also I've heard is a little bit on the sad side. And from what I've read in the back, essentially we're following a couple that's about to go through their divorce. I feel like that concept alone is going to tug at your heartstrings. And Tia Williams, who we just talked about, also has a blurb on this book. This also follows a more mature couple, which I didn't think I'd enjoy that much in books, but gradually I'm learning more things about what I like and what I don't like, and this does seem like something that I'll really enjoy. Then, kind of random, what a throwback this was, Looking for Alaska. I saw this book and it immediately unlocked a part of my childhood or teenagehood that I had almost forgotten, but this is by John Green. If you've been on YouTube, you know who John Green is. I remember reading this back in the day. It had such a chokehold on me because I literally remember quoting parts of the book and now I can barely remember what it's really about. I do remember Alaska is the female main character and she has a chokehold on Miles, who's the male main character. I just remember a lot of angst, a lot of teenageness from this, but I saw this and there was like an even bigger markdown on Book Outlet for this book, so I was like, I can't not get it, and I'd love to reread it at some point. And then the last 3 books I have read before, but I love them so much I wanted the physical copies. Okay, so Throne of Glass. I feel like this series changed my perspective on reading in so many ways. This is by the same author who wrote A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is very, very popular. I would argue that I enjoyed this series more than A Court of Thorns and Roses for a number of different reasons. This is fantasy and romance. There is war, there is magic, there is like everything you could want in a fantasy series. I was blown away because up until this point, I don't think I've read something like as complex in terms of multiple perspectives and all the different areas in the world that are fleshed out, and just all the characters as well that you get so attached to. Even though there is romance involved, that wasn't my favorite part. I feel like the romance was probably romancing a bit harder for me in A Court of Thorns and Roses, but for this, I was in it for the plot and all the scheming, all the different things that had to be done to win this war eventually, which I don't want to like get into it, but obviously there is going to be some build up. When you start the series, you'll essentially be introduced to a girl who is also this badass assassin who has been imprisoned. She has the opportunity to fight for her freedom, so you follow her along as she, embarks on this journey and all the other things that unfold as she, tries to fight for her freedom. And then the series just gets more and more epic from there, to be honest. And that's all I can say about this. Hopefully Book Outlet gets the other books from the series because they were obviously cheaper, but I did read these before and I am pretty certain that I will reread them. And then last book that I did get, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is the first Emily Henry book that I read. I've read this and Happy Place, and I really loved this. I thought I got a really good sense of Emily Henry's writing style. On the other hand, I've heard people saying this is not their favorite Emily Henry book, but it just goes to show you that reading is so subjective. In the first few pages, the 2 love interests meet each other and it's off to a rough start. They are both in the publishing industry in some way, and it does kind of follow the enemies to lovers trope. That's kind of why I think I liked it so much, was like the dry sense of humor, and also just the banter was, I thought, really good. So I love this and I think I will reread this at some point soon. So those are all the books. I think I know already which book I'm going to read next, but let me know if you guys have read any of these, if you had any specific opinions or feelings. I would love to know in the comments. Also, I just want to mention that I recognize this is a lot of books. Do I always go out and buy this many books? Absolutely not. It's actually so funny that after I went on my little book excursion, I've continued to see videos, which I think is like part of why I wanted to refilm this, about just the discourse of how booktube and book talk have ruined literature or like rotted our brains and how we view books, or the overconsumption of books because of people doing hauls and big hauls and such. And then I thought, okay, this is obviously not what I'm trying to do either. I'm just gonna go back to the first thing that I said before we got into the books, is how much I've enjoyed reading and how grateful I am to have reading as a hobby again, because I think as adults, we don't really make enough time to just do stuff we enjoy that doesn't have a monetary incentive behind it. Like, I am literally just doing this because I enjoy it, and there's very few things I feel like that we make enough time to do just because we enjoy it. People read for different reasons as well. This lighting is going crazy, I'm sorry. I grew up reading a lot. It fell off my radar, especially as like I started to consume my time with things like social media and everything. And the fact that it's finally found a place in my life again, regardless of how that came to be, I think is still something that I'm very grateful for. And if you're trying to get into reading and you're not hurting anybody and you are doing something that is enjoyable for you, I am so here for that. I probably won't be talking about books this in depth for a while, but I also know that I want to go to more bookstores, so maybe we'll do another update the next time I get some ideas of places I want to go in Calgary, or the next time that I go to the library. I'll probably share with you guys how that goes, because I definitely need to go back there. So thank you guys for entertaining this little itch that I had to talk about books. If you guys are currently reading something, I'd love to know where you're reading in the comments. Make sure to like this video if you haven't yet, and to check out other videos from me on the screen, and I'll see you guys next time.